Welcome, everyone. It's been a little while. It's been 8 weeks since I've been flying because, well, you see what's happening out there. Winter. Yes, I have my instrument rating, but the problem with where I live is that all of the weather comes across the Great Lakes and dumps an enormous amount of snow on us. But not just snow, it's icing. So today there is icing from ground level to 16,000 feet. Mike Victor uniform cannot fly in icing conditions. I could fly through those clouds because I am rated now, but I cannot take this aircraft out there. So it really cuts down on the amount of flying I can do in certain parts of the winter. The temperature of the Great Lakes is dropping, and probably in the next couple of weeks, the temperature of the lakes will drop to the point where the winds don't pick up moisture and cause this these conditions of snow squalls and icing. So hopefully I'll be able to fly shortly again. There have been a couple of good days, but I just haven't had time to go out. So I came out to the hangar today to do a little bit of spot polishing. Some of you may notice this section of the aircraft just gets covered in white garbage. I have tried everything. I've consulted with some real experts. There's a guy who's really savvy in aviation, and there's someone else with some superior engine knowledge. And both of those guys have said, yeah, no, there's a problem deeper in your engine. And so we're going to talk about that. Let's do a 2025 wrap up. Let's talk about what we're going to do in 2026. We'll talk about the engine problems. We'll talk about where the channel is going. You're going to get so bored of me talking, you'll probably click away already. So 2025 was busy. I flew 255 hours in 2025. I got my instrument rating in 2025. We made 30 videos on this channel, 2025. And total viewership for all of 2025 was 500,000 views. Not great. Not great. For a side project, okay, but not great. And total payout from YouTube for this channel was 4,000 Canadian dollars, which is about 3,000 US, something like that. So as much as the views were okay for a side channel, YouTube is paying less and less and less and less per 1,000 views. Like, they have really, the bottom has fallen out of advertising. So there's no money. I still do it as a side project. I still do it for myself. And this is where we get into how the content is going to change. I'm sitting on an Apple box. For those of you that don't know, I've spent my entire adult life, about 30 years, working in film. And I feel like 20 years of those have been spent sitting on set on an Apple box. I'm very comfortable on them. So we'll go way back. Let's go right to the beginning, and I'll tie together a story. We'll bring in the airplane and we'll talk about stuff. In the mid-1990s, working in film, I was pitching with a group of people pitching television shows. And we were pitching cooking shows, and I was bringing in and pitching airplane shows. By the time 2005 comes around, I was no longer working in episodic TV or long-form movies. I had moved into specifically working in advertising, filming big-budget television commercials. Think alcohol brands, beer brands, car brands, airlines, big hotel chains, like companies with big money. And we were doing big international campaigns. And around 2005, 2006, the brands and the ad agencies started coming to me as the producer and saying, wouldn't it be great if we got your crew on lunchtime to, shoot us a little thing for the internet? It'll be a lot of fun. And I'd have to push back and say, this is their job. These people are here to make a living. It's not fun. They don't want to work through their lunch to make your fun internet video. And this happened time and time again. And I had a couple of other cousins who work in advertising at the time. And we sat around one Saturday afternoon talking about it. And they're like, yeah, no, this internet YouTube thing is going to take off. So I kept making TV commercials. But I opened a separate production company to go to these clients and say, yeah, we can't do it as a giant production, but I can bring in a skeleton crew of like a half dozen people. We can shoot it on this brand new, at the time it was the Panasonic HVX 200. We can shoot it on this brand new digital camera. We can edit on a laptop, and for $20,000, you can have an internet video. And that worked. So I had two businesses going. And 2007, I started the cooking channel because I also wanted to figure out how YouTube worked. I wanted to figure out what the ecosphere was on YouTube, what people watched, what they reacted to, you know, all of those things, so that I could talk to clients knowledgeably about the internet. And then eventually, I had to make a decision whether I was going to grow that part of the business really big into something that I didn't want to manage, and I didn't want to manage it. So all of those jobs went away for the internet, but I still had the YouTube cooking channel, and I was having fun with it. And I still do work in film, not as much as I used to. I don't like the hours anymore. I'm getting a little bit older. It's a young man's game. I'm having fun on YouTube. And so at this point, I'm semi-retired from the film business. I am a YouTuber. I produce YouTube content. And this is where in 2020, I had an opportunity to buy this aircraft. And I pulled out all of the pitches that I had done for airplane shows. Pulled them all out. The one pitch had been, we were going to set up a guy in a hangar. We were going to drop off a kit plane. I forget what it was. It was a bush plane kit that was made in Quebec. And their claim to fame at the time was they were one of the first to match drill all of the panels, so it would all come together much more quickly. What was that plane called? They're no longer in business. Anyway, so we're going to set them up and do this. And along the time that I had the cooking channel, this idea was always in the back of my head. Could I do it? Could I make money? Could I make a channel and make it financially feasible to build an airplane? And the answer was always no. The money on YouTube is kind of silly. Silly small. I'm silly small. So when the opportunity came along to buy this aircraft at a really good price, I mean, I bought Mike Victor uniform in 2020 for 20,000 Canadian dollars, which at the time was 15,000 US. The idea came back, pull out all of those pitches. Let's do the first year and a half of the show about rebuilding the aircraft. And so that's on this channel. The first year and a half of the channel was about rebuilding Mike Victor uniform into my dream airplane. And we're pretty much there. I've got 3 things left that I want to do, and we'll get to that. And then it's sort of morphed into, well, what's next? And I drifted for a while. And in 2025, it really hit me that I am bored of just getting in the airplane and flying from point A to point B and then back to point A and showing you and, you know, editing together a cockpit view, an outside view, you know, a little bit of the engine noise and a little bit of air traffic control. As a creative with a creative mind, it just doesn't interest me. I had completely become bored with that. And so at the end of 2025, you started to see, I think there were 4 videos right at the last 4 videos that I made. I've started working out other ideas. And in 2026, that's where it's going to continue. In 2026, we're going to, just like I did with the last KFC buffet in Canada, or the Canadian Air and Space Museum, or when we flew to Fishmonger up north to get some fish for dinner, it's going to be, let's fly someplace, meet somebody, tell a story about that place or that person or their business or a factory tour. And I've spent the last 3 months working really hard as a producer, putting my producer hat on and going out there and trying to get people involved so that I can tell their stories. And it's tough at the beginning because I don't have a track record doing it. So it's going to be a little bit slow getting going. But once I've built another half dozen of these snippets, it will be much easier to get access. So that's where I want to go. There will still be maintenance videos. This aircraft was made in 1961. There's so much maintenance that needs to be done. The front cowling needs to be replaced. I've searched for the last 2 years to find a replacement cowl that was in good shape, that wasn't cracked. They all seem to crack in the same place. There are no new parts for this aircraft, for parts like that. There's a great channel on YouTube that you should check out if you're a pilot or an owner called Open Source GA, and he delves into in great detail the challenges of operating legacy GA aircraft when parts disappear and there's nobody out there making that part. What are we going to do? So, things like that to be replaced. I'm going to put a longer exhaust tube on the aircraft so that white stuff that comes down the side of the airplane, it's totally stopgap. We're going to talk about the engine in a little while, just so that it doesn't start here. If you look at Schmindy's channel, they've got a 1958 aircraft, Cessna, that is also polished, and their white streak doesn't start until back here, and it's barely noticeable, and they've got the longer pipes. So we're going to put the longer pipes on. I've got some of the LEDs that we put on the plane back in 2020 have blown out, so we need to replace those. So there's still going to be those maintenance videos. We're still going to go to the shop with Chris, and we're going to do those maintenance videos. But I'm going to intersperse those with a lot of other things. The last 3 jobs that we need to do on this airplane is I'd love to change the seats. They're so uncomfortable. And I'd love to get the seats done. A couple of options for that, but cost. Set that aside for a moment because of cost. I'd love to do the panel. So behind, I know you're going to say, you've done the panel, Glenn. Behind the panel that you see, there's a structural piece that's a panel, and it's these rivets here. See these rivets that come down? That's structure, and that's a panel that goes across the aircraft to the other side, and it keeps torsion, keeps the plane from twisting. You're not supposed to cut it, but people cut it to put new instruments in. Mine was cut before I ever bought it, and Chris and I stiffened it, hopefully, to keep the plane from twisting. And at this point, it's working. There is an STC to put a structural panel in there. It's from Six Pack Aero. Great company. Love Six Pack Aero. If you need something done, give them a call. So they've got an STC to do this. Their STC isn't yet accepted in Canada, so I'm sort of waiting. As soon as it's available, I think we're going to do that. But cost, there's cost. So we're going to set that aside for a moment. And we're going to get to the elephant in the room, which is the engine. This is a Continental O-300C. The engine was rebuilt in 1986. It's 2026. So that was 40 years ago that engine was rebuilt. When I bought it in 2020, it had been 35 years since the engine had been rebuilt, and it only had 300 hours on it. That is devastatingly horrible for an engine. And when Chris and I were doing the initial pre-buy, we knew this. We'd gone through the logbooks. We knew that this was going to be a problem. We borescoped the engine. Chris made out a laundry list and said, you've got maybe 5 years on this engine before you're looking at some major repairs or rebuild. And so over the last 5 years, we've kept it limping along, but we have reached that point. Where in 2026, I don't want to put any more money into the engine. It needs to be rebuilt. Last summer, because I was really busy with the airplane and because I was doing my instrument rating, I elected to spend $2,000 to replace one of the cylinders just to get a little bit more out of it. I didn't have time. A whole bunch of things. I hadn't yet saved all of the money that I needed to rebuild the engine. So I didn't want to, I'm not someone who takes out loans. I didn't want a loan. So I have to save all of the money that I need for the engine before I start doing the engine. And I didn't want to be down I was quoted 12 weeks to get the engine rebuilt. I didn't want to be down for 12 weeks because that would throw off my training. So I elected to spend a little bit of money to limp along. We limped along, but now, it leaks oil. It does things that it shouldn't do. It's not catastrophic yet. There's still a lot of life in the engine, but I know that the end is near. I know that it needs to be done. So I've got 2 options. Take the engine off, send it out to have it rebuilt. The quote I got was for $55,000. And like I said, 12 weeks at the shortest amount of time. That's a long time to be without the airplane. Although if I'd saved the money, now would be the time to do it because I wasn't flying anyway. The other option is one of the STCs. There are 2 STCs for this aircraft to go from the 145 horsepower O-300 that's on it to a 180 horsepower, either Lycoming or Continental. I don't believe for a moment that this engine is putting out 145 horsepower. I would say if you put this engine on a dyno, if you got 100 horsepower out of it, we'd be lucky. So the 2 STCs, the cost for them, one is a little cheaper than the other. One of them has another advantage, a few other advantages. I like the IO370 that goes with the Stutz Aviation STC. The quote I got from them is double the cost of rebuilding this engine. It's probably, from a long-term standpoint, it is the better option. Putting in an STC with the larger engine, a brand new larger engine, is the better option than rebuilding an engine that was last manufactured 3 decades ago, and an engine that, you know, has been through the wars. But I don't know how I'm going to get around that. It's going to be the end of 2026 before we get there. These are all the things I need to think about. So, coming up in 2026, there will be a change in the style of video. It's going to be more like the last 4 from 2025. We're still going to do a lot of maintenance. There's still a lot of maintenance to be done. I'm hoping to see some really interesting people and go some interesting places. And we're going to keep coming back to, you know, what is the plan for the engine on this aircraft? How am I going to do it? Sponsorships, not really much of an answer. I do have one sponsored video coming up. The next video you see or the one after will be sponsors. My problem with sponsors is I only want to do sponsorships for products that I would actually buy. And for the most part, 99% of the people that come to me and say, "Hey, Glenn, let's sponsor," I don't like their product. And then there are a couple of other companies like Six Pack Aero who have come to me and said sponsorship. And I'm like, I really like you guys. I like your product. I'll just talk about you. Unsponsored. Was that too long of a ramble? Have I been rambling? Stream of consciousness. Turn on the camera, just stream of consciousness. So down below, let me know what you'd like to see. My hope is that I can spend 2026 crisscrossing Canada and seeing some interesting things. I still want to go to the Arctic. I don't know that that's going to happen. And here's why. It's a planning nightmare. In order to go to the Arctic with an engine, with an airplane that burns AvGas, I need to be able to carry fuel with me. Because the furthest airports in Canada do not have 100 low lead. They all have Jet A, and this doesn't burn Jet A. So I need to be able to bring enough fuel with me to get back. With this engine, I don't have enough payload to take the amount of extra fuel that I need to get back. With a 180 horsepower engine, I could do it all day long. I would get a massive bump in gross maximum weight and a massive bump in usable weight. Another reason to go with the STC rather than rebuilding. I think that's it. It's freezing in here. It's minus 16 out, and I was able to get the temperature inside the hangar up to 1.2 degrees Celsius. So it's time to go home. So drop a comment down below. Give me your thoughts on STC engine or rebuilding this engine. Give me your thoughts on where you'd like to see me fly, things you'd like to see me do, people you'd like to see me interview. Snowplow. No planes today, just snowplows. I'd love to hear your thoughts on all of that. As always, thank you for watching, and thank you for commenting. And I'll hopefully see you again in the air.